We think we could create 1 million jobs just in the energy sector.
What about things like regulatory agencies who do things that the Congress would never do, like the EPA imposing regulations which the Congress itself decided not to pass, or the NLRB saying to Boeing, you can't move from Washington to South Carolina, even though you just built $1 billion plant the size of 11 football fields there, it's going to stand empty.
Well, every year, about 200 regulations are promulgated by regulatory agencies that cost the economy over $100 million per regulation. We take those regulations and say they cannot become law unless they're voted on by both houses of Congress and signed by the president. I think this reform alone would take a lot of power away from the unelected bureaucrats.
This would radically change the regulatory state, because there's a lot of people watching us now might not know. There's a vast body of regulators out there who are not elected. Some of them are civil service. Some of them have been appointed by the president. They can write regulations independent of the Congress. Federal district court judges can't even interfere with those. You have to sue in a specific court, and the only question is, did the regulators abuse their authority? Stated differently, they can write almost any regulation they want, impose it on business or impose it on groups, and it stays the law for many years. You've suggested what I think is a brilliant way to change that.
Well, and here's a good example. You've heard of people having their property taken away because the government says it's a wetlands?
Yes.
Congress never wrote anything about wetlands. Congress wrote something called the Clean Water Act, and then the regulatory bodies came up with this term wetlands, and they invented this concept that if birds landed on the Everglades and then flew and landed on your property in Kentucky, somehow you were part of an interstate wetlands contingent. So really, a lot of these rules were written by unelected people, and really Congress had no say in what was written.
Well, why does the government enjoy doing this? I mean, you're not talking about a hypothetical case. You're talking about a real case where a couple in Idaho, the government is trying to condemn their property. I don't mean pay them for it. I mean take it away from them and not give them a nickel because of literally the birds and the fish that are in their backyard.
Well, here's the amazing thing. The property of this couple near Priest Lake, Idaho, it doesn't touch the lake. It doesn't touch a stream. It has no standing water. In fact, they say they've never seen water on their property. There's a house on either side of them. They already have a sewage hookup that's been put in the ground. It's a residential development project, and the government's telling them it's a wetlands, and it's the onus is on these people who bought the property to prove it's not a wetlands. And this will go to the Supreme Court, and I have high hopes that we have enough rational minds on the Supreme Court to overturn this.
I don't want to get in the weeds, but that's another change that you and Senator McCain and Senator Portman can propose. The onus of proving the regulation should be on the regulatory agency rather than the onus on the victim of that regulation disproving it.
Absolutely.